Hi there, and thanks for joining in this video, another in a series of videos from Soaring Me about successful interviewing. Now, in this episode, we're going to bring in a subject matter expert, and that is Mr. Johan Dahl. Johan, very good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, Michael.
Now, as sort of a backdrop here, Johan and I started a week apart at a recruiting firm in 1997 that sort of launched both of us in this career. And Johan has focused in a completely different industry than I have. And so I wanted to bring him in and talk about energy traders because Johan knows the energy sector in and out. And there may be people out there that are interested in getting into the industry or moving up within the industry. And I thought we can kind of tackle that subject by tapping into your expertise, Johan.
Sure.
Okay, so the first thing I'd like to cover is just what does an energy trader do? And in many of my videos, I've talked about how hiring managers and recruiters kind of come up with this idea of their perfect candidate that they want to hire. And so could you also speak to what that typically looks like, what they're looking for?
Absolutely. So when it comes to energy trading, it's in the word energy, right? So energy could be power, it could be natural gas, it could be crude oil, and it could be other refined products that are out there, whether it's diesel or marine fuel or jet fuel, anything that really produces energy one way or the other. And so these they are commodities out there in the market worldwide. The three big centers for trading in the world is really here in the US. It's mostly Houston and New York. And then over in Europe, Geneva, London, and then you have in Asia, mostly in Singapore. And now looking at the US market, they are also doing futures and options and swaps and other things. And also the physical, moving physical power, moving physical gas, and not only the derivatives of that. So if you're going to look at where most firms that are trading energy, so it could be a utility, a natural gas company, it could be an energy merchant, an IPP, an independent power producer. It could also be your electric co-op or the city. Like here in Austin, we have the city of Austin, have Austin Energy, which is a municipal. So they trade energy. The banks trade in it, investment banks like Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, a lot of the European banks as well. And then you have hedge funds. Hedge funds are big into energy and energy commodity trading. So when you, okay, did you have a question?
No, that's a great overview. So it sounds like if somebody wants to be an energy trader, they can approach it from several different angles, I guess, is the way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. And most energy traders are being recruited out of college. A lot of these organizations, they go to the top schools and then put them sometimes into kind of an apprentice program, where they get to learn the basics of trading from experienced traders and successful traders. But if you see anything, it's not like you can get into energy trading without coming from a top university. But if it's any kind of a trend that I've seen over the last 21 years, that is one avenue where they get recruited directly out of as top students in top universities. Now, when it comes to the profile of somebody that is experienced, mostly what an organization would like to see is that it's somebody that has experience with the physical trading. And that meaning that that's opposite to financial paper derivatives trading. And that will be option trading. You're trading futures, swaps, and other things, versus physical, where you're actually moving the energy commodity, whether it's barrels of crude oil, or in the pipelines, you're transporting gas through the large network of pipelines that we have in the U.S.
So if somebody has maybe come out of college and done a year or two trading some other commodity, that's attractive. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's if they have some other trading background, whether it's maybe trading securities, stocks, bonds, others, I think that certainly helps. We certainly have recruited people out of other industries or other commodities, whether it may be trading sugar or coffee or grains or soybeans or other things, so that it has parallels. So you can transfer into the energy trading from that perspective. So it's other avenues than coming right out of college into an energy trading firm. And sometimes also people that are working at these energy firms and understand the electric grid, for example, or the natural gas pipeline system well. They have more of an operational background. They also can get into the trading side. But the other part of it that is also important, and more so have been important, I think, as the years, compared to 10, 15 years ago, is that these individuals really have a very strong fundamental analytical skills, that they maybe do their own modeling. And when I say modeling, I mean that they also many times have to have some quantitative skills, maybe some programming skills, where they program in R or Python or VBA or MATLAB. That certainly gives somebody an edge, because it has become more of a quantitative. It's not, people are not trading on gut feeling. It's a lot of data. A lot of data is going into the decisions that the traders are making. And many times you may even start as a risk manager in the front office, and you're sitting next to a trader. You're not trading yet. And then you may become a junior trader, and then eventually a senior trader, and maybe one day head of trading, and you're running the whole trading floor. So that is something that they're looking for these days. The other thing, when it comes to an experienced trader, and you're going to transfer into another organization, obviously what they're looking at is your P&L track record. So, have you been profitable? Have you been blown up? In terms of what they mean with that is that you have actually lost maybe a substantial amount of dollars. And it is a risky business. You can see that in, looking back what happened last summer, or even in the last few months, particularly on the crude oil. A lot of the large trading houses, lost hundreds of millions of dollars, being on the wrong side of the trade. So the risk management
when they're trading other equities or commodities.
Pardon me?
Similar to what happens on Wall Street.
Yes. Maybe even more volatile, because you can have such a swing, on commodity prices. But obviously in the stock market, it can be very volatile as well. But the ones that really excel, though, as traders, are the ones that are also excellent risk managers. In other words, they have a deep understanding on how assessing exposures and how to hedge for it. So hedging is a big part of what these traders do.
Okay.
And
I'm sorry, Johan. You had mentioned about people coming right out of college, and I'm just guessing here, but I would imagine if you're interviewing somebody coming out of college, you're going to be particularly interested in courses that they took, like statistics and other things that would apply to what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Now, our firm is very rarely involved in college recruiting. So, but as a firm, the firm themselves, they do that, and certainly they assess all the coursework that they're taking, and what kind of what kind of courses and what education that they have. Many of these guys have an MBA as well. Some of them have what they call financial engineering. that, for example, University of Chicago has a very strong financial engineering program, or financial mathematics, and UC Berkeley, UCLA, others. Yeah. But I deal mostly with people who are experienced, that at least have 3 years under their belt and maybe are going somewhere else. And obviously people have, much more experience, 10, 15, 20 years. And the other aspects in that, it is a pretty high risk job, and many of the traders are maybe staying 1 or 2 years, sometimes even shorter as one of their employers. So sometimes you look at a resume, you have to kind of judge, you really have to talk to understand what happened in the market, what happened with that company, that maybe they were bought or something happened there, and they went out of business, and may not be the candidates be the cause of it that you're interviewing. So, but when somebody shows some longevity at employers throughout their career, and or has a logical explanation of why they made those career transitions, and if you have been in the industry in a while, you kind of know what happened to certain organizations and what happened with certain markets. In 2001, when Enron went out of business, they took out a lot of other companies as well that was counterparties to them, and not only Enron lost a lot of money, the whole industry kind of took a big hit.
Okay. So just kind of knowing the volatility within the industry, you kind of assess whether or not the candidate looks like they're just following that volatility, or if there's a pattern of maybe job movement that doesn't follow the industry, then it's perhaps a different concern that you'd be looking at.
Yeah, and then what speaks sometimes loudly is really their P&L spreadsheet from each. If they've traded 10 years, and you can look during those 10 years, how much VAR did they have, how much did they put at risk, and what was their P&L? Were they making
kind of a measurement of whether they
2 million, 3 million, 10 million for the company or more? So everybody has a down year, or they have a few months where they are on the negative, and that's not always a concern for an employer. It's kind of the overall trend, and have to show consistency and not risking too much for the firm or for the employer. Because you have stories of people really going wild out there and as traders, and they're taking too much risk, and they're risking a lot for their firms. So it's a lot on the line every time that they're putting on trades, but particularly if it's big trades, big positions.
Okay, well, let me move on to what I think a lot of the viewers are probably most interested in, which is the interview process. So if somebody is either breaking in or trying to move up within the energy trading field, what would you say is maybe the most common mistake that they make in an interview?
Sure. And I think this is true for really any interview or any position, in terms of the mistakes that I've seen over the years, and it applies even if you go into a trading role. When somebody, when they just schedule a phone interview, and usually you get at least a few days to prepare. And I think the biggest mistake that I've seen is that candidates who does not take the preparation seriously. Because it's clear what we have seen over the years, that the preparation that you put in before the interview always have an impact on the outcome of the interview. So, they may not really go and study their website. They don't read press releases. And some public firms, I always recommend that they go and read the annual report, or maybe even what analysts in the market say about their company. So that is a component, I think, that you can never really over-prepare for an interview.
So study the company, the position, maybe the products or services that they do, but in general, it kind of shows that they haven't made an effort. Is that the impression that they're?
Yeah, well, it's times that, many of my clients and hiring manager, one of the questions they ask is like, what do you know about us? What do you know about our firm? What do you know about our position in the marketplace? And if they can't answer that question, that shows to the hiring manager, well, this candidate is not, can't be that interested in the position because they haven't even read up on it. They don't know what kind of business we're in, and or where we're in business and our market penetration and what we do out there. So that is usually a showstopper, right there. So I think that is a fundamental mistake that some people do. And another mistake that we see is that, because sometimes it happens, you have candidates interview for an interview, and there's certain aspects of the job, whether it is experience or skill level, that they may have, they haven't been involved in that area or used those skills for 6 months or a year and a half. Many times it means that they can get up to speed fairly quickly, but they don't anticipate that when they prepare for the interview. So what they need to do and what they don't do, and I consider a mistake, is that they do not go out there and kind of get up to speed what's going on in that particular field, whether it is a software or whether it is a particular platform or a system that a company is using. And they could also call some former colleagues or acquaintances and have them help them, help them to get updated. So that is another mistakes that we see.
Sort of overconfident in the interview, therefore will probably be overconfident and unprepared throughout the job itself. So it's a bad sign.
Yeah. I think that's part of it. That's part of it. How some candidates, get knocked out because and they shouldn't really need to. It's kind of unnecessary. So, and I've seen the opposite when people do prepare and they do, spend some time to kind of get up to speed what have happened in the last, like, let's say 9 months or 8 months, whatever it is. And on the subject of mistakes, the other thing that I think that every candidate needs to keep in mind is that they need to know why they're really interviewing. Obviously, they want a job. That's kind of the easy answers. But they want to go a little more deeper. What are the intention that they have for themselves? What do they need to learn? What questions do they need to get flat for themselves and get answers? And understanding that it is a two-way street. It's you are also interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you, or the employer interviewing you as a candidate.
So how would you figure out what questions the candidate should ask during the interview?
Well, that is obviously a good question, and I think it goes a little bit by case, what kind of position it is. But I would say in general, I can give you an example of a couple of good questions that I think that somebody's going to come in with. Number one, why isn't this role being filled from within the company? Try to get an understanding, why are they going outside the company, particularly if it's a little larger company. Or maybe with that question, they may discover that they have some internal competition from candidates internally. A lot of times companies they don't want to advertise that, or they don't even tell us as recruiters. A question that we always ask, but you don't always get a straightforward answer on that. Another question I think is important to ask is, how do you, as a hiring manager, define success in this role, and how do you measure success? So you get a sense of that. And also about promotional opportunities. Ask the hiring manager, let's say I'm successful in this role, I go beyond expectations. what kind of promotional opportunities are available or possible. Now, fully understanding that I'm being hired for this role, and that is what I'm going to, if I get hired, what I'm going to focus on. But if I was going to look down the road 3 to 5 years, what's possible there?
Yeah, I would, if I hear that, I would want the person to be committed to this role for at least a year, but it sends a signal that this person has aspirations and is going to work hard to get that promotion.
Exactly. And also understand, similar to the earlier question I said about what are examples of the best results produced by people in this role. And even ask, what are the challenges? What are the most difficult aspects of the position? What is kind of the bad news? Well, what is it that you may not want me to know about the role? Challenges that I may face, 3 months in, 6 months in. Be willing as a candidate to ask the difficult questions, and you'd be surprised. Most hiring managers are happy to share, and it's not all, it's not all just the kind of the positive or the positive side of a position. Everything has a backside, and kind of know that, walking in. Another thing I think is important for a candidate to ask is about their philosophy on training and development. Do they support continuing education? Do they have maybe a benefit plan where you actually can get reimbursed if you continue education at the university with an MBA or a master's degree or something similar? So I think that's an important question. And another question that I encourage candidates to ask is to be a little more personal with the person that you're talking to. You may be the main hiring manager, and maybe other people that sometimes you go in an interview and you meet with 6, 7 people. Ask them, why did they accept the position? Why did they work there? And what keeps them working there? I think you can get some insight into that. And the other thing that we also coach our candidates going into an interview, or encourage them, they don't always remember this, but in an end of an interview, you ask, have I answered all your questions? Is there any part of my background or skill set that you would like to discuss further? And you really, the purpose of that is really to probe for any hidden objections that they might not want to tell you. Or maybe a concern that they have. They maybe have it as a thought, but you get an opportunity to handle anything that a concern that they may have.
Maybe they thought you lacked this experience, but you just forgot to mention that you had done that, or something.
Exactly, and it's a balance there, I think, between how much you talk. I mean, it's like somebody told me years ago. When you listen, use your ears and mouth in proportion. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so listen, a lot more than you talk. So sometimes you may not, you may have the knowledge and the skill set, but you have chosen not to go into as much depth. And that's another thing that's important, I think, with interviewing, that you kind of, you take the temperature of the person that interviewing you, did that answer your questions? So if you would like me to go into more depth, I'd be happy to do that, but I understand we only have 45 minutes here. So you kind of get a sense of, how much do they want to hear? Because one thing you don't want to do in an interview is to sit there and just ramble and talk so much about things that they don't even care about, and they may just be polite to allow you to do that, but it's really something that they have no interest in hearing. And it has become, annoying rather than giving them something of value.
Excellent advice. It kind of goes back to needing to know what that profile is that they're looking for, so you can talk to those points.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, Johan. If there are viewers out there that are either in energy trading or looking to get into energy trading, Is
Yeah.
there any other advice that you would give them?
Well, this may be advice that nobody wants to hear. The last couple of years, energy trading and commodity trading, 2017, 2018, we're talking about now. It was tough years. It was a lot of the traders did not trade as successful as they wanted to. A lot of trading shops. So the energy commodity market has had, certainly a downturn in terms of profitability and with pricing, with low commodity pricing, little volatility. So it was not a lot of opportunities. So a lot of these organizations are not currently doing a lot of hiring. But that's, over 20 years, I've seen, like in most industries, you have those up and downs. So you have a curve basically, up and down market. So it's going to come back. And 2019 certainly could be an upswing year. But other than that, if it is something that somebody really want to pursue in their career, there will be opportunities there. They may have to be just a little more patient. They may not get to trade or be part of a trading book or run their own book as fast as they maybe did a few, 5, 6, 10 years ago. So you have to maybe be a little bit more patient as a candidate and maybe be involved in other roles on the trading floor initially, and then eventually get promoted into a trading role. So that would be my best advice. It'll be opportunities there for sure. It's not going away, but it may take a little bit longer to get into a trading seat than it did some time ago.
Fantastic advice. Thank you, Johan. I appreciate you sharing your expertise.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to tell the viewers that we'll try to add some other special guests to talk about different industries. If you have a particular request, you're trying to break into a certain industry or move up within a certain industry, just leave a comment below. As always, I would recommend that you subscribe to the Soaring Me YouTube channel, share this with your professional network. And Johan, thanks again for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.